Hey guys, and welcome to another C++ programming tutorial from Someone9031, and today we will be talking about default arguments in C++. So basically, default arguments are a way in C++ that let you make certain arguments within your function optional. So the person using the function does not need to enter all of the values. So today we will be writing a very simple function that calculates the interest of certain values that you input. So yeah, let's get started, and along the way I will show you about how to use default arguments. So our function to calculate interest will return a double, because interest is usually big numbers and stuff like that. So double interest, and the arguments that we will take are double principal, double int time, and double rate. So if you don't know, the way to calculate interest is to take the principal, which is the amount of money that you start out with, and then times it by the rate, which is, well, the rate, and then times that by the amount of time that you're calculating the interest for. So what we're going to want to do is double I equals principal times time times rate, and then return I. So we have our interest function, but there's quite a few arguments here, and yeah, we can make some of these arguments default arguments, which means that some of them are optional. So yeah, I'll show you how to do that. So say we want to make this rate argument optional. So let's say we wanted it to be, if the user doesn't provide a rate, we want it to have the rate of 0.05, something like that. So this is what we do. We go after the argument and we put equals, and then we give it a default value. So this default value is the value that is used if no value is passed in for that argument. So let's do this for time also. So we set it to, so the default time is set to 1 year. So if nothing is provided, it will be set to 1 year. So this now means that if the user just entered like one number, what the program would assume is that number is the principal, which is the only one that we have not provided a default argument for, and then it will automatically pass in by default the value 1 for time and the value 0.05 for rate. So that gives you the option of only having certain values that you really have to pass in. And an alternative, if you didn't want to use default arguments, is basically the same as overloading the function, so that it only takes a certain number of arguments and then just assumes the rest, just inputs the function's own value for the rest. So yeah, let me show you how this works. So if we see out interest, so let's calculate the interest if you have 100. So like so. As you can see, I don't have an error because I'm passing in one argument, which is going to principal, and then the two other arguments are already provided. So let's run this program. And the answer that we get is 5. So the interest on this is 5. Let me just see. 100 times 1 is 1, and then times 0.05 is 5. So that worked like we wanted it to. And yeah, basically with default arguments, you can provide arguments that are passed in by default. You can also see that we can still pass in values for arguments that we've provided default values for. And when you pass in values for arguments that you've given a default value, the value that you pass in will override the default value. So the value that you pass in is the one that's being used. And 0.1. Let's just do that. So if you run the program again, we now see it has been overridden. So these default values have been overridden, and we get 20, which is 100 times 2 is 200 times 0.1 is 20. And yeah, there are certain rules for default arguments. Basically, the rule is that you can only have default values at the end of your argument list. So we can't move this time up so that it becomes the first argument. So because then we have no idea which ones. If we only pass in one value, then we have no idea which value is being passed in. Because yeah, if you put a default argument as the first one, and it just won't work, because say you just want to have principal, but this default value is here. So if you pass in just one argument, even though you have two default values, the value that you're actually passing in is going to time. If we had moved time up here. So basically the rule is you can only have default arguments at the end of your list after everything else has been put in. Yeah, so just to recap, basically default arguments are arguments that you make optional for the user, and if they don't enter a value for that, then a default value is supplied and then passed in. And the way you do that is just to put an equals and then the value after the argument. So yeah, that's the tutorial. If you like this video, please subscribe, rate, and if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, please leave them in the comment section below. It would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, thanks for watching.